Well, here we are, the final episode of The Boys Season 4, and I gotta say, a lot happened. Things I didn't expect to happen, but boy, is it a little bit of a mixed bag for me. Let's just talk about it right off the bat, which we all thought January 6th being hinted throughout the date was going to lead to a January 6th kind of playthrough like we had in real life. And honestly, we didn't necessarily get that. There wasn't any type of big, rally or trying to take over of Congress. If anything, there was more assassination attempts on the now President Singer. And I gotta say, given the real life circumstances that we had recently with former President Trump's assassination attempt, it definitely hits home a little bit more in terms of like the boys just knowing how to match what real life tensions can be like on both sides or any side. And yeah, things I liked. I kind of liked the shapeshifter angle and eventually Huey figuring it out this episode and kind of the shapeshifter playing it in Starlight's face a little bit and that angle. I do think Annie was a little bit harsh on Huey. Huey, who has been through a whole lot in this whole entire season and these recent days in the show, whether it's his father's impending death, kind of death dealing with his mother, all that jazz, the sexual harassment he's received multiple times. Has said he's not been okay, and even though Starlight definitely is dealing with some of her own personal, very important issues, I do feel that she's a little bit harsh there. But I also understand Annie coming through. This is usually a lot of self-doubt, and I think the scenes where the shapeshifter is talking to Annie worked very well, and that all comes down to Erin Moriarty's very, I think, just good acting, and I bought those scenes very much. Let's talk about some of the other parts of the episode that worked. I think the Homelander-Ryan relationships worked very well, and seeing Homelander become unhinged felt something that was necessary and earned. I feel he's not as unhinged because people aren't true to him, but because he's now realizing that even his son doesn't love him and wants somebody else to be his father figure, and he doesn't know how to handle that, and everything goes to shit for Vought. He openly outs Newman as a soup on live TV. We get, him just blowing up the boys at, whole sanctuary, the Seven Tower, not the boys, the Seven's Tower, killing, reporting they're killing all the staff, and just being very confident and just unhinged and not in control of his emotions. I think that is the stuff that worked really well, and paired that with Ryan and kind of that interaction between Grace and Butcher, and eventually how Grace desperately tries to keep Ryan hostage, but ends up potentially creating a Homelander clone himself. I thought all that stuff with Karl Urban and Ryan worked very, very well. I love Butcher kind of having the soft side gripping with Death going the right way, and though part of me is sad to see Butcher become kind of a villain himself, that he's always kind of been. At least this way makes sense. Him seeing that, Ryan killed Mallory in that scene where Mallory's trying to keep him and understand, even though Butcher knows Mallory's going about this the very wrong way and kind of got what she had coming, knowing, who Ryan is and all the information overload she put on a young adolescent. He finally unlocks with this Kessler mind, it is time to take on the Soups, and we see the tentacles. We saw what happened to Ezekiel. We see what happens when that side of his brain takes over. And the death of Victoria Newman. I was surprised by this episode. That was pretty graphic, and seeing Butcher do all of that, with his tentacles ripping her in half, and just putting the sign of terror in every single one of the boys, and who were, I think, rightfully bringing Vicky in, and Victoria Newman as a character finally hit her breaking point with Homelander and realizing it's not worth what he's putting me through. My daughter's life and my daughter's future is more valuable than mind, and Homelander is going to destroy that, even with his twisted superheroes, superior vision. And the scene that she had with Huey over the phone worked really well. Her coming in, I think that was going to work. But then Butcher came in and tore everything to shreds, quite literally. And yeah, we'll see where Butcher is going. He now has the virus, and he's going to make his own attempt on Homelander. I don't think he's going to be able to kill him. I still think it'll be Ryan in the end. But yeah, that was a big twist for him and what's going to keep Butcher alive. And I'm not sure I love it perfectly that much, but it does make sense with the rest of the season, and really it puts Butcher on an irredeemable path, in my opinion. Even if he does do something nice, he's irredeemable to me at this point. What else? We got Kimiko finally speaking at the end, and let's just go over the ending as a whole. Seeing all the non-superhero portions of the boy be arrested by people in the Seven, I hated this ending, because for me, it means nothing to keep these people alive. So I don't know how Frenchie, Mother's Milk, and Huey are going to survive this, and even Annie and Kimiko, because there's no incentive for Homelander and the bot team to keep them alive. So that's just a bad story plot hole that I'm wondering how they're going to get through next episodes when Season 5 eventually comes the final season. But it left a sour taste in my mouth. I think we could have left this season off with all of them going their separate ways at first and Homelander taking over, and that would have worked perfectly fine. We didn't need to have them all arrested. But callbacks of superheroes that we've seen, whether in Gen V or throughout the whole entire Boys, and some of those people who came back didn't make sense that they were working with Homelander and the Boys, especially the people who the person that got Annie and Huey. That character does not seem to be like me, one who's going to be connected to the Vought and the superhero ideals all the way. They were kind of on their own, but gotta do a cameo, that's kind of what it felt like at the end. I wasn't the biggest fan of that ending. I also didn't like Annie magically getting her powers out of nowhere. Didn't really feel like she earned that throughout the season, or it was a moment that made sense. It was just like, oh, hey, my powers are back to working now. Didn't like that for her arc overall, but that's my one critique. I didn't mind I loved the idea that Homelander's coming out on top. That's always where the season was going to go. And I think we got there, and we'll see how this final season goes. But didn't like that angle. We saw Ashley take some V, maybe trying to super herself up, knowing that she was on the hit list herself. So we'll see how that comes into play next season. And then, Sage. I loved Sage throughout this season. And I thought she was a very smart character working on Homelander's side and off Homelander's side. But to claim victory that she controlled all of this, I don't see how that's the case. This is an episode, this time where Sage's super smart superpower needs to be explained more in how she got this done, instead of just saying, I did it, we got it done. President Singer said he was the one who assassinated Vice President Victoria Newman, so now he's being arrested, so now the Speaker of the House is going to be president, and he wants to give Homelander martial law. And I'm just sitting here nothing of that makes sense for Sage. I don't see how she controlled any of that. If there were hints of her throughout this episode, maybe I missed them, I could buy into that arc at the end more, but it sounds like we just had to bring Sage back in to kind of, let Homelander realize, I do need Sage in this, in my crew, and that, give her credit for all this, but I don't think she gets any credit at all, in my opinion. And I've been a big Sage truther this whole season. The other thing I didn't like that much this episode was, the out-of-nowhere, inconsistent nature of Firecracker and her coughing sickness with the medicine. Some parts she's doing it, some parts she isn't. It just didn't, wasn't consistent enough for me to make it. And I just thought it was interesting, kind of poor writing overall. There's some other shows out there that I've been pretty negative about when it comes to lazy writing, and I'm not going to be nice to the boys just because I enjoyed a lot of this season. Instead, I'm going to kind of criticize this finale as pretty lackluster, kind of lazily written, and even though there's parts that I really do enjoy, like the Ryan and Homelander bits, I feel the edges of this was just poorly put together and way too convenient and also way too questionable for the story. Like, again, how are the boys going to live through this arrest? They should just be killed. There's no reason why the superheroes would not just kill them on the spot. We'll see how this goes next season, but yeah. Did you enjoy this boys finale? Am I being too nitpicky here? I'm going to give this finale just like a basic silver. I did not love it very much in terms of all the, I think, convenient plot holes and just inconsistency of characters and giving credit to characters where they didn't need to. And yeah, that's Boys kind of goes out on a weak whimper in some ways. I'm excited for the final season, but I am a little bit worried that some of these more inconsistencies are going to pop up next season, because I wasn't a fan of the Frenchie Kimiko storyline this season, even though they got their relationship. I kind of liked them better without the relationship, and it felt like we were retreating ground for their characters that we've had in the previous 4 seasons. The Huey and Starlight stuff, I think, worked decently well, but we got away from it just a little bit too much at the end to really have that impactful meaning. Butcher's stuff, I think, was handled very, very well throughout the season. Kind of no complaints there, except that he's more irredeemable, but that's okay. Some characters will be irredeemable. And then, yeah, Firecracker had her upside and her downside. Sage, I was really into, but I did not like. And then no A-Train this episode. I think we'll have him back next season, but he had a really good arc this season. The Deep, The new Black Noir, Victoria Newman, I did not like the ending for this character in that type of a way. Seeing, Butcher just rip her in half. A little bit underwhelming, but kind of, happens. And then Mallory kind of going out the way she did. We'll see the ramifications to Ryan in the future, but yeah, that's my thoughts on the end of Season 4 of The Boys, the finale episode. Again, there's some things I can like in here, but overall there's a lot of convenient plot hole type stuff that really brings us down to kind of just being like a meh finale. So tell me your thoughts down below, like and subscribe for more TV show, movie review, and reality TV type content, and I'll see you later.